for joining us for this museum midday. We're joined today with learning more about the American Legion here in Ketchikan, which has been here and will learn more than 100 years. So we want to thank them for joining us and as we learn more about the American Legion. So thank you for joining us for this museum midday. And please do check down in the description ways to get in contact with and plug into the different events that the American Legion hosts and holds, and those different projects that they sponsor and support here in the community. So thank you very much for joining us. Hunter, we'll let you introduce Dan, and Dan will let you introduce Hunter for us.
It's a great pleasure to introduce the current post commander of Post 3 Ketchikan, and that is Dan Jones. Dan is a retired Coast Guard chief and came up here with his active duty wife, who is also a chief, which is just another connection in Ketchikan. But Dan has really been dynamic, getting our membership up, getting projects started, and followed through on. We all know how tough that can be. So Dan will be the primary speaker this morning, and I pass it over to him.
Hey, good morning. Like I said, my name's Dan Jones. You call me Jonesy if you have a question. I don't mind that time. I've been up here about 3 years. I contacted Hunter and his wife Deb actually through Facebook when my wife got orders before I moved up here. Said, hey, I'm moving up, I want to get involved. Hunter's retired U.S. Army. His wife is also a retired U.S. Army. They've both been living here over 20 years, I believe now, and very involved in the American Legion. We call them Mom and Pop when they're not around. But they've been great guidance for me. They've been great guidance counselors for me. They let me run with them some ideas, and they've been very good about like, hey, we tried that idea a couple years ago that hasn't worked. Not necessarily no, but we've tried those activities before. So been very, very gracious and been very wonderful mentors for me as I've learned more about the American Legion as I've grown up the last couple of years. So. All right. Good. So, all right, so we're here to talk about Post 3. So Post 3 here in Ketchikan has been here over 100 years. We're a centennial post. Originally got our charter in 1919. December 29th of 1919 is actually when the official charter was signed and brought back here to Ketchikan. We are Post 3, but we were actually the oldest post in the state. When the numbers were drawn, they were all put in a hat, and the first 16 post members had a representative, and they all drew Southeast Alaska, so we were the further city south. We were the first one to actually technically draw a number out of a hat. It just happened to be number 3. So Anchorage claims they're Post 1, but we're really older. So we're just a little bit older than them. So we remind them on a regular basis. We've been in the community here. We originally started out right where the federal building is now. That was our original home in 1920. That's where we originally met in 1920. Basically the federal government owned the land where we're sitting now, and we basically did a land swap. So where we're at up on Park Street now is actually swapped for the federal government where the federal building is now. Ground was broke here in June of 1937, and they finished it so fast that the 1938 Alaska American Legion Convention was actually held here in Ketchikan. To honor the commemorating the building being brand new, they brought Anchorage actually brought an entire band down. Brought the entire band, marching band down all the way from Anchorage, which I could not imagine the logistics of doing that now, much less in 1938. We have approximately, our first membership was there were 74 members when the Legion was originally posted in 2019 or 1919. We now have about 240 members. We're growing. Last year we had 100. Our goal was 187. Last year we had 240. So our membership's grown really well. We have a lot of folks that are really excited about membership, getting younger folks members involved in the Legion. We need activities. We have to provide activities for our folks, and that's our number one goal: to provide activities for our folks to come out and enjoy spending time with us at the Legion, spending time not just hanging out. It's good camaraderie to come out and hang out on Friday night, but I want more activities for families. That's the kind of stuff we do. Try to provide activities like that. So
A word about those founding members. They were all great war veterans, and they were very definitely of the mind that this will be the war to end all wars. We saw how, 26 years later, that went out the window. But they wanted to continue the service that they had started in the war and did not want to lose that camaraderie and the ability to get things done. So in our founders room over at the Post, we've got most of the pictures of those first 74. If anybody would like to visit us and possibly recognize some of them, in other words, they might be in their family photos, because very few of them are tagged with a name. We'd like to get some more, so come on by.
Yeah, absolutely. One of our earliest projects we were involved with here at Ketchikan was in 1930. So by then we didn't even have our building yet. That went up until 1938. In 1929, 1930, we got involved with moving the totem poles of Southeast Alaska to Ketchikan, which a lot of people in Ketchikan know where Totem Bight is. But the Legion was very influential in that because a number of our members had boats, they had barges. So they were assigned different areas of Southeast, and they worked with local Native communities to move those totem poles back here. And we're very proud of the fact that that was one of our first really large community projects. The American Legion was really influential and was able to help with that project. That was a big deal for us to be able to do that.
So when you see the poles out there at Totem Bight, some of them are, most of them are all recars, but there were a few originals that were there when they started the project, and it's a testament to Southeast itself, not just the American Legion and the Native community, but Southeast itself, that they were able to get all that done.
A couple of things we want to talk about. At the very beginning, we were one of the first legions in Alaska to have an auxiliary program. And our auxiliary program stood up right alongside the Legion program within 2 or 3 years. And auxiliary is basically, it was originally made up, it was called the Women's Auxiliary. It was basically a place for wives and spouses to get involved and come alongside the Legion and help support their husbands through the American Legion. It's called the auxiliary program. We still have members. We have approximately 45 members of the auxiliary still here. It's been going on for generations. Some of them are families that have they continue to work. Wives and daughters have continued to work through. I think it was the early 80s, if I get my math right, they changed it from the Women's Auxiliary to just the American Legion Auxiliary because they realized that there was a lot of men who, if their wives served, they are eligible to join the auxiliary. So it's an opportunity for us, another program. Hunter and I are actually both members of the auxiliary here in Ketchikan because both of our wives are active duty members. So it gives us another way to serve, another organization to get involved with, and turn around and give back to the Legion and support the Legion. I think you've been a member for how long?
I believe I was the second male auxiliary member in the department. First when Mike beat me out at Seward, close by.
We also have two other legs, or two other organizations underneath the Legion. We have the Sons of the American Legion, which is for male dependents that remember their fathers or grandfathers served on active duty or served in the military in some form or fashion. Then you can also, as a member of the Sons, you're allowed to join. It's another organization that allows you to honor what your father did. So if you didn't serve in the military, you can still honor your father or your grandfather through service. And here in Ketchikan, I depend strongly on the Sons. The Sons are huge for us. They do a lot of work for us. They come alongside. They're really good about doing fundraisers, and I have no problem calling those guys at any given time, and they'll come out and help out. They're really proud. In a lot of ways, sometimes the Sons, you get members of the Sons, they're prouder of the service their parents did, their grandfather or father did, more than sometimes my active duty members do. Not that they're not proud, but these guys really get passionate about honoring the service of their father or grandfather. So very much so. So that's the last leg, the last part of the American Legion is called the Harley Ride, or the Riders, the American Legion Riders, which is made up of folks who ride motorcycles. And it is actually the fastest, over a national level, it's the fastest growing part of the American Legion. What's really great about these folks, this is a way for younger people to get involved. We're seeing younger grow through the Riders. They have a lot of charity. There's being a lot of money being brought in through the Riders programs because the Riders are willing to, they get out in the community, they're more seen. You get 10 or 12, 50 motorcycles going down the road wearing the colors of the American Legion, and that's a great advertisement. That's a great position for people to see. That's good for other veterans too to see that. So that's really great. Here in Ketchikan, we have approximately 12 to 15 members of the Riders here, and when it's not raining, you'll see us out riding.
Not just seen, but heard.
But heard,
Yes.
right? Absolutely. In our history, I wanted to talk about, we boast 14 department commanders. So that means out of Ketchikan's post. So post 3's had, in the last 100 years, we've had 14 department commanders. And the state of Alaska is one large department. Depending on population, some states will have multiple departments. Like California, or districts, I'm sorry, districts. So California may have 4 or 5 districts.
14.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
14 districts. Wow. So here we only have one based on population for the entire state. So we have the department commanders. We boast 14 now. Hunter's a former department commander. His wife, Deb Davis, is the current department commander. That's why she's not here with us today. She's somewhere between Fairbanks and...
I think she should be approaching either Denali or Cantwell by now.
Yeah, so she's on the road. Her part of her job is to travel around the entire state and visit different American legions and deal with issues that they may have, membership or housing, whatever issue they're dealing with veterans. That it's her job to come in and help from from a higher level.
The department commanders, a name most Ketchikanites may recognize is Talbot. The first Department of Alaska commander was Jack Talbot, and there were quite a few others in there. There was a mystery commander. We haven't been able to find anything about him except for we did contact his family, but Dr. Shurick, S-H-U-R-I-C-K, and this guy's kind of a mystery. He was a doctor, worked out of an island in the East River in New York during the Great War, and came here. But when he passed, he didn't get a Legion funeral. He was a 33rd degree Mason. And evidently he was well thought of because in those days, this was back in the mid to late 20s, he had a full Masonic funeral. So everybody was there with their full regalia. They had bands, they had the works. And we've got one of 2 known photographs of the man. So it's an eclectic place, this town we call Ketchikan.
A couple of programs we have going on right now. We do a lot of stuff in the community. It's our job, part of the Legion, our job is to interact with the community and support programs in the community. That's really important for us. All the active duty members in our event, we make up the community. We make up a large portion, so it's our turn. A couple of the programs we have Children and Youth Scholarship. We work with K-High a lot. We've got a lot of scholarships. We have a number of scholarships we'll give out through K-High. The Sons of the American Legion have a scholarship program, which is pretty neat. I really like the program they have now. They started 2 years ago where they're actually doing a test. And they'll bring in and they do a history test with some constitutional questions on it. And then they actually, scholarship is based on how well you do on the test. Which is really cool. Last year they had a tie for first place. And they freaked out a little bit when they were fair. They ended up splitting the scholarship and both of the young folks got part of the scholarship, which worked out really well. But yeah, so scholarships grows up. Our oratorial program is really big here for Ketchikan. Yep. We do really well across the entire state, our oratorical program. And basically how that works, I've never been involved with it, which is really neat to see and watch. These young folks will come in, and these are juniors and seniors.
It's actually, you can start at the freshman level.
Instead of freshman level. And you come in and you actually will be assigned a part of the Constitutional Bill of Rights, and you'll have to describe and talk about very well about what that is. And then during the program, they will draw another.
They know what the topics are, but yeah, that's the Bill of Rights. So they know the topics. There's usually 3 that are given. They reach into the hat, they pull out Second Amendment, or they pull out 24th Amendment, or whatever. And they get a few minutes to prep, and then they've got to do an ad hoc, extemporaneous presentation of whatever they drew out. It's 5 to 8 minutes. The main topic for the Constitution is it has to be from 8 to 12 minutes.
No more than 12. It's pretty fantastic to watch.
Ketchikan, since I've been involved, 5 go to national.
Yeah.
And one of them went twice.
Yeah, one of them went twice, one of them went twice.
Young woman.
Oh, okay.
And she tore them up. I personally may have been a little biased and thought she should have won, but she did get second place nationally. But for her, and this is something to think about for everyone with kids coming up to graduate in life, she earned over $21,000 in scholarships from the American Legion at various levels. We have a great relationship with Legion Baseball here in town. That relationship is growing.
We're doing a lot of Legion baseball. The team did very well 2 years ago. They went further than they had been since like 1984, yeah. And then they all graduated. Now they're back down with a bunch of freshmen. But they had a great year. But we're doing a lot with them. We really want to get more involved with the Legion baseball team. We've done a lot in the last 2 years to get more involved. We're selling we're actually selling the same uniforms that they're wearing. So up at the Legion and turn around and give the money back to the baseball team. So it kind of gives an opportunity for us as fans to be wearing the same gear that the kids are wearing. So we sold a bunch of their stuff really fast. Every time I get it, they sell really fast. We've supported the basketball team, the volleyball team,
swim team,
travel team. Yeah, travel's a big deal. One thing we also do with Legion baseball is we opened us up to help Legion teams that are coming here. So South Anchorage came here last year. We worked with the National Guard Armory to provide cots, and the Coast Guard base gave us their gym for 3 days. So the kids have a place to sleep. I don't know if you know it or not, but it's really expensive to fly down here. So for a baseball team to raise enough money to fly here, well, we can alleviate part of that process. We actually gave them a van the first year when South Anchorage came down. We actually provided a vehicle for them. So we had a van for them, local, I think it was the high school sports van. We got to use it during the summertime for Legion ball. So we had them a vehicle and we provided them somewhere to sleep, and they had showers over the gym. So the Coast Guard base was willing to house them. The National Guard was willing to let us borrow cots. It really worked out really well. And Peters Creek called this year,
right?
And they had heard how we deal with South Anchorage, so they got the same deal. They wanted the same deal. Yeah, so it's a growing program, and it really gives us an opportunity to help these folks that are coming from other parts of the state and alleviate a little bit of the financial burden.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Do you have boys and girls staying on there?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So, the earliest program for the National American Legion was Boy Scouts, soon followed by the National Oratorical, and then in the late 40s, early 1950s, they had Boy State. And Boy State is a miniature Congress. The kids show up, the young men show up, they divide themselves into houses, they divide themselves up into representatives and senators and parliamentarian and all the rest of the speakers, and everybody has to bring a resolution, and they have to argue, and they learn a lot, particularly the parliamentarian aspects of how to run a meeting. We've all been in the meetings that are totally disorganized. Well, I would almost guarantee that if there's a boys' state or girls' state, when the auxiliary started, running a meeting, it's probably going to flow a little bit better. But presidents have been Boys State graduates, or Boys State and Boys Nation. It's just a terrific program. Anyone that goes to either of the programs, boys or girls, comes out of that saying that was one of the best experiences I've had in school.
And folks have, what's the age?
It's that year between junior year and senior year. Yeah. So it occurs after school has let out. And the problem, of course, is everybody's got baseball camps, soccer camps, swimming camps and the like. So there's been some competition over the last few years, but we're still sending young men and women to Boys and Girls State and producing someone that knows a little bit more about the Constitution than the folks who've done it then.
Yes, it's got a
great program.
You got enough coming seniors, have someone coming up, coming their senior year. All right, we have these programs available. We'd love to send. We sent 2 last year. We'd love to send at least 2 from Ketchikan every year. So, we have a great relationship with Coast Guard base. I don't know if you know it or not. That's the biggest military base we have here in Ketchikan. Yeah, right. They are a branch of the military, contrary to popular belief, they are the Legion. We have a great relationship with the base, and it's growing. We have a couple of programs that we're really proud of that we have going on there. We have a Settle the Quarter program down at the base, where there's actually 6 commands on board that base. And a lot of people don't know that. It's 6 separate commands down there. So we ask all 6 of those commands to reach out to us once a quarter, and they give us their sailor of the quarter. That's somebody that's done some significant things on board their ship, on board the command unit, and something they've done to make them proud is they've stepped their game up compared to everybody else in their unit. So we have those people, they do a write-up and they present it to us. We have a committee that sits down and reads through all 6 of those, and they decide once a quarter on who the American Legion Sailor of the Quarter is going to be. And then we provide them a little bit of money and just an award and an attaboy coming from the American Legion. And also the credit union comes along and actually matches what we do.
Supports that.
Yeah, they support that also. So the credit union actually supports that also, supports that program.
We always like to, when we're making the presentation, we always like to point out to them that you're not working unseen up here. People are paying attention. And we thank them for their service. We thank them for being here. And if you've ever been out on the water and needed to make a Mayday call, we're glad they're here.
We also work with the Chiefs. The Chiefs do a program every year called Chiefs Call Initiation. It's a program for our Chiefs. They do a lot of work through the American Legion. They do a lot of volunteer hours through the American Legion. It's a fantastic program. That's in the spring every year. We work with those guys. We've done multiple retirements at the American Legion. We provide the hall to any active duty members. An active duty member or their family wants to do an event. We've done kids' birthday parties. We've done those type of events. We've got someone that wants to do a birthday party. We got it's open to the Legion's pretty much open. If you're active duty or retired military, we want to have you come see us. We'd love to have you. We'll take care of you any way we can. During COVID, we provided a place for the Coast Guard, some members of the Coast Guard to get away and come spend time here, get away from the flagpole for different events. They had to get away, move off the base, have different events because they had to spread everybody, or had to spread out, right? So we were able to provide some meeting place for those folks to meet and have different meetings there to kind of spread out a little bit, which is a little bit a good way for us to show that we're able to support the community and help the base out that way.
Well, speaking of sharing, the museum helped us. Last year we hosted what we call the fall workshop, and we were able to use this space for one of our meetings. Actually, we used the lobby, and it worked out very well. So again, it's that cooperation between all of these different entities.
Working in the community, locally in the community, there's a number of the Salvation Army and both of the shelters over on Park Street, PATH. We've done a lot of work with those folks. We make donations. That's part of our job too in the Legion is work with the community. And if we see another nonprofit that we see somewhere we can help someone out, we do those kinds of things. First City Council and the Arts Council are two of the other people that we've come alongside them numerous times over the years and helped those folks out. It could be just a financial donation or with the shelters, we do a lot of food donations. We have an event at the Legion, and we have a ton of we did our halibut feed 6 months ago, and we had some halibut left over. We walked across the street and gave it away, and those folks were really glad to have it. We've done clothing drives, and we've come up with clothes, and come in the wintertime, we just recently gave them a bunch of clothes we had over there, stuff like that. It's just another way for us to help out the community.
One of the things that I'm proudest is, as we say in our opening address at every meeting, we do the preamble to the Constitution of the American Legion. And part of that is to uphold and defend the Constitution. That makes sense, that's what we do. But one of the most important parts is where it talks about service. We are continuing that service that we started when we raised our right hands. The Legion is an important part of, for me, that personal sense of continuing service to the nation and to the community. So if you're an honorably discharged veteran from December 7th, 1941 on, you've served one day, you're eligible for membership in the American Legion. The American Legion, when we talk about paying college bills, the American Legion was responsible for the GI Bill, the first GI Bill in 52, 53. And just continue the service, support.
Yeah, that's something I was about to say. On the national level, my credit, 22 years in the Coast Guard. For 20 of those years, I didn't have any idea what the American Legion did, except it was a place for buy cheap drinks. When I was younger in the military, that was something I wanted. But then I found, I know, right? Come to find out the Legion is so much more, right? And not until I got up here and I got involved with Hunter and Denver, I realized there's so much more to the Legion. So many things that I took for granted my entire career. I had a GI Bill. I had 30 days paid vacation. I had TRICARE. I had VA benefits, my disability benefits when I retired. All that all that came through resolutions from the American Legion. Someone in the American Legion was sitting around one day in the 1960s and said, you know what? Our veterans benefits say healthcare is really bad. We should do something about it. They write resolutions, and the way it works is you write a resolution and you route it through, same as we do in the military. You route those resolutions, and we have folks in D.C. There's lobbyists that will take those resolutions and they fight for our rights as veterans. And that's part of what the American Legion does, is we fight for rights of veterans. And that's something that I had no idea that I was benefiting from work someone else had done. So I think in turn now, it's now my turn to turn around and try to do things for the next generation. Maybe I do something now, or in the next couple of years, that some young man will take for granted 30 years from now. And that'd be great. Some young lady, some in the service, if they ever take something I did for granted, they had no idea I did it, that's wonderful. That's what I want to do. And that's where I see the American Legion gives an opportunity. One of my favorite podcasts I listen to talks about when you retire from the military, you have to have a new mission. You have to get involved in something because we're very mission-oriented in the military. This place has given me an opportunity to continue a mission. This gives me something to fight for, something to work for every day. And that's what this place has done for me on a personal level. On the national level, we talk about disaster relief. We do a lot with disaster relief, emergency funds for members, VA services, hundreds of VA, a veteran service officer. We have a member, we had a phone call a little bit ago, about 30 minutes ago, we had someone call up to the Legion and said, hey, we got a member who doesn't have VA benefits and he starts the paperwork. We have those capabilities to start that right here in Ketchikan. We start your paperwork, we show you how to route it, we show you where it is to go to Juneau or Anchorage, and we get your paperwork started. Not gonna cut you a check right away, but you will never get the disability benefits you deserve unless you start the paperwork.
You've got to ask.
Yeah, and that's what we can go. That's what we do. We provide services to veterans. Last week we had a veteran service officer down from North Pole. We worked with VFW. They brought a veteran service officer down, but we provided the space. He spent 2 days here and saw over 40 veterans. Yep. 25 of them weren't members of the Legion. We don't care. They're veterans. They came inside, we gave them a place, they hang out, and he was able to service their needs and talk about their needs. Some of it was as simple as, hey, I haven't received, the pay I was getting a year ago, or haven't I received this? But it's so much easier to put a name with a face when talking to the VA instead of a 1-800 number and you're talking to someone on the phone. So it was a really big deal to get that gentleman down here from North Pole. We're going to get him back again in the spring. So yeah, that worked out really, really well.
So we're guided by the 4 pillars of the American Legion. Did you have that? Okay. So the first one is care of the veteran. The next is care of the widow and children, and that's done through the children and youth programs that we do, the scholarships and on and on. The next one is a strong national defense. We have multiple committees and commissions that go out and visit locations. So care of the veteran, care of the spouse and orphans, national defense, and Americanism. And that's baseball. That's sports programs. That's oratorical. That's boys and girls state. So the 4 pillars are what drive the American Legion, and I think Ketchikan has benefited through the years from that. All 4 of those legs.
I want to talk about one more thing real quick, and then I'll love to have some questions from you folks. They started something about a year and a half ago, right in the middle of COVID, which was a great time to start a new program. They started something, the American Legion does what's called, they have a podcast now. So it's a place where veterans can get your questions answered, and it's really great. I'm an old veteran now. There's a lot of folks younger than me in the military now. But at the American Legion level, I'm a little bit younger than some of our members. But the podcast is a way to reach younger folks. Podcasts are a way to get information out. A lot of us like podcasts. A lot of younger folks like to listen to podcasts. And they started a podcast called Tango Alpha Lima and the American Legion. It took like 3 weeks to figure it out. But yeah, so it's called the American Tango Alpha Lima, the American Legion. And they bring on some really unique people. They bring on retired generals. They bring on soldiers. They'll bring folks on and allow them to tell their military story and then talk about what the Legion has done. For me personally, at the commander level, I've enjoyed the fact they'll bring commanders on from other posts around the United States, and I can hear what they're doing. And I hear guys say, "Oh, I did so and so," and I'm like, "Oh, we're going to try that." And some of it may not work, and some of it will, but it's a great way for me to listen to the ideas of what are some successes going on with other American Legions, or I'll hear somebody say, "Oh, we tried something and it didn't work," but that gives me ideas of what I can and cannot do here. What else?
Yeah. Yeah, let's open it
Please,
up.
yes ma'am.
Well, I'd love to start you off. You mentioned so many different programs and things that the American Legion is involved in here, including those who, have, their father, their grandfather,
Sure.
family members were in the military and would be eligible to join you. So how can people contact the American Legion here in Ketchikan and get involved in these projects that you talked about?
So if you go to our, if you Google American Legion Ketchikan, it's going to roll up the Post 3 Facebook page. So we're connected to Facebook, and on there it'll list our telephone number and the hours that we're open. In the summertime, this past summer, we were open more when the cruise ships are in. Just honestly, we can make money off cruise ships just like everybody else. We get a lot of veterans coming off cruise ships, so we were open up during those hours. Traditionally, we're open Monday nights, 6 to 10. We have a business meeting at 7 o'clock, but we're traditional, and then Friday and Saturdays. Fridays are normal social hours, 6 to 10, 6 to 11 if we've got a crowd of folks in there. And then here, almost every Saturday for the last 6 months, we've had some activities going on. We post all our activities. If I do a good job, everything is posted to Facebook if I do it right. But we try to post our activities to Facebook and keep that updated. That's the easiest place to keep your information, find out information about us. But if you want to join, just come see us on a Monday night or a Friday night, and trust me, we will. We'll probably get you joined, get you on some sort of committee, and get you volunteering for something.
Yeah, exactly. Don't show up if you don't want to work. No, that's not true either. Show up.
Yeah, please, absolutely. Yes, ma'am.
Well, first of all, thank you for your service, both of you. I guess the question I have is what do you think right now is the biggest challenge facing veterans? How all do you guys address those challenges, and how can the community in general support veterans as well?
Here in Ketchikan? Yeah, probably housing. Yeah.
Without a doubt, housing of veterans is that and suicide, veteran suicide. Both of them are such a huge topic that I would just to answer your question, those are the two. And they go together pretty closely.
Yeah, it's interesting. I didn't realize this until I was there. I was on the podcast a couple of weeks ago, and they discussed, people talk about veteran suicide, right? Everything that, for years it was 21 a year, or 21 a day, and all this kind of stuff. But actually, do you know the age group that the veteran suicide is the most? 55 to 70.
Yep.
55 to 70. Because not only we talk about veterans needing mission, right? You normally think suicide, 19, 20-year-old, right? 23-year-old. No, it's the 55 to 70-year-old, because he did 20 years, or she did 20 years in the military, and then she found that next mission, she now found that next job, and that gets them about their 65 or 70, and then they retire from that job, but all of a sudden they don't have anything to do, and they get lonely, and they get, those type of things. I know there's other things that go into it, but from an age standpoint, and I was shocked about that, but it's the 55 to 70-year-old veteran, and we've all seen the statistics, but it's pretty shocking that you're 4 times as likely to commit suicide as a veteran than you are a civilian. I recently saw that statistic. Yeah, pretty wild. That's something big. We've had, if you maybe read the paper, we know we've had a couple of active duty suicides here in Ketchikan in the last 2 years. So it's some severe issues they're dealing with over there at the American Legion. Down at the Coast Guard base, and we've come alongside them and help them out in some ways, and sometimes just listening. I had a member reach out to me last year and said, "Hey, I've got a guy that works for me, and he just needs somebody to talk to." And it was just a matter of making a phone call and just hearing a conversation and continuing. We have to continue to reach out to these people, and just a lot of times just giving them somebody to talk to. We've done some work with the shelter, the new shelter across the street from us, and they've got at least one veteran we know over there. And working with him and making sure he understands that just because he's homeless, he's across the street from us, he still has a home with the American Legion. We're still his family, so he can come over and hang out with us. He's not ostracized because the fact he's in a homeless shelter. He's still a veteran. He's still welcome to come over, spend time with us, and hang out with us, and make sure they're not ostracized just just because they're in that scenario. But yeah, the housing, we had that phone call too.
Yeah.
What else?
Well, I'm so very curious. So, you stated, you all were chartered here in 1919, all the way to today. So more than 100 years, and I know, Hunter, you mentioned that there were some fundraisers and events and things that did not work. So do you want to talk about, at least, I've seen everything from boxing that the Legion's put on to theater plays. Can you talk a little bit about some of those others that might stand out in people's memories?
Well, I would have to say that most everything, as we're all well aware, if you're a nonprofit, Some things work, some things don't, because of how much draw you can get to it. The Legion sponsored Weekly Smokers, which is a term for boxing matches and the like. We've sponsored pool tournaments, we've done dart tournaments with actual steel darts, not these little plastic ones. So you can imagine the possibility of things going wrong on some of those. But we've also had some pretty eclectic characters, to use that word again. Our longtime adjutant, years ago, we were hosting the national commander for the American Legion, and he walked up to Cal and said, "How's a guy get a beer around here?" And Cal looks up at him and in his gravelly voice says something to the effect of, "You go up to the bar and get it yourself." So we don't hesitate to let people know where we stand.
We've done, I know when I first got here, I found out right in the last recent past, we did a Wii tournament. You know, the video game Wii, they did a Wii bowling tournament. And you go around, travel to different places in town doing Wii bowling. I just thought that was a rather different way to get people in the door. But if it works, right? I mean, if it gets people in, when you're a nonprofit and you're looking for ways to make the place more inviting, man, I'll try. We're currently doing yoga and mimosas on Saturday mornings. And yeah, right? See, I know we've got a number of ladies. I think our biggest group, and men, we've had a couple of men, but I think our largest group is 16. We have an auxiliarist, and she comes in and she teaches yoga. We clear the place out, shut the lights out, make it look nice and a little bit darker, a little more relaxing, and they'll do yoga one Saturday a month in there. And that's been pretty neat. We do, do karaoke. We've got some folks that bring in a karaoke machine. They're like, "Hey, we got a karaoke machine. Can we store it?" And then they host karaoke for free. So that works out really good. So that's another thing we've done. One Saturday night a month we'll do karaoke. We're doing yoga mimosas. We're trying to do more activities for kids. We did a party last year for our members of the Coast Guard that were leaving. We call it PCS, the Permanent Change of Station in the military. So we had a PCS party. So we had 10 members of the Legion and their families. So we brought them in. And me and Hunter, I looked around the room and I was like, there's like 14 children under the age of 8, like running around inside the American Legion, chasing my dog around.
And that's what we want.
Correct. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Because if the membership, what was it, another gathering we had, and your observation was, wow, look at this crowd. And I said, what's that? I said, over half the people in here are under 40. And for any organization, whether it be the Elks, the Moose, the Legion, the VFW, local churches, yes, that's a huge demographic that needs to be addressed. But what was it? Just read something yesterday. Most high school students spend somewhere in the neighborhood of 70 hours in front of the screen every week. So they need to get out of the house.
And on a national level, we just addressed this at our convention. The Legion is looking to do gaming, looking at possibly getting into video gaming, to where you would have a Legion team, like Ketchikan would have a Legion, a gaming team, and they may get online and play against somebody in Oklahoma who's also playing against somebody in Japan. You know, because those type of things are very explosive. All the branches of the military are doing that.
Oh, yeah.
The Coast Guard team had a guy here in Ketchikan that just played on the World of Warcraft, and they came in second place to the Navy, and they went to this national gaming convention and represented the U.S. Coast Guard. He's one of the guys that's here in Ketchikan. So gaming is big for younger folks. So we, as a Legion, we have to be willing to grow. We have to be willing to understand that there's newer activities out there, newer ways to reach people. I mean, Facebook, if you said something 30 years ago about you're going to talk to people online and get membership online, they look at you like you're crazy, and now you absolutely have to be able to do that. Texting and internet are ways that we absolutely have to be willing to change and communicate with people.
The two-way wrist TV.
Yeah, that's right.
I grew up with Dick Tracy, and all of a sudden, that'd be great. Yes, Mom, I'm going to be late. We've got it all in our pockets right now.
What else you got for us? Any other questions?
One thing I was thinking is our exhibit that we have up right now is all about how we gather and why it matters, and wondering about like the American Legion as a gathering place. Sort of what is that importance, not only for people that aren't in the service, but for veterans and people that are active military. What do you see the importance as a gathering place?
I get it. For the Coast Guard, we talk about getting away from flagpole.
It's neutral.
It's a neutral place. You come in. We're not saying we'll never talk politics, but we don't talk politics, right? The Coast Guard can come in and they have people that nobody has rank when they come to our meetings. So when you come in there, we might have an E9 and an E2 in the Coast Guard sitting beside each other, and that's very significantly different rank, right? You have a Master Chief and a Seaman sitting beside each other. But in the Legion, we're just members of the military that are trying to make things better. So I think that's a good thing about it. We have all branches of the military coming to one of those meetings, but it's also very sociable. We tell people on Friday nights, hey, we're going to do a potluck. Everybody brings a meal. What were you planning on having for supper? Good, bring it to the Legion, and we're going to eat as a family. Especially coming into wintertime, it's really big for us to get out of the house. We have to force ourselves to get out of the house, right? It gets started at 3:30. It's hard to leave and go to a meeting at 6 o'clock at night. I know, I live out north. But it gives an opportunity somewhere for folks to gather and spend time with others. And we're social as humans. We're socially social, and to just do that kind of stuff, I think is really where we make our impression, where we get folks.
Well, the neutrality also goes, as you said, about the rank. Because in any of our initiations for new officers at the post and department and national is there is no rank among us. So you could have a 2-star general being a member and he's working behind the bar. Post 3 actually has one honorary life member who is a Medal of Honor winner, and that is Drew Dix of Colorado, but his membership is here. So I love seeing that picture of him in his Legion cap with 3 on the skirt.
What else? Good.
Well,
Yes, ma'am.
well, yeah, I mean, I think my takeaway for this too is you talked, more than 100 years here, and you talked about working on projects and things that might not see fruition until, a couple generations down the line, or, young servicemen now who won't, know the work that you guys put in. What are some of those legacy points that you see for the Legion here in Ketchikan, and those points of impact that the Legion has had on the community?
The most recent one on the national level that comes to my mind is the PACT Act. If you've heard about the PACT Act. The PACT Act is basically taking our Desert Storm, Desert Shield veterans, and they were exposed to burn pits. All the way up through, they were still using in Iraq.
Still are.
Well, still are in certain places. Right. And they were exposed to their lungs, and they were exposed to, there's cancerous things that have happened, exposed to some dire diseases, and it's been because of their exposure to burn pits. And for a long time, they weren't considered an injury that you sustained.
Yeah, the VA did not agree with the presumptions that just because you were standing there burning excreta in an open barrel with a little bit of diesel and a little bit of gasoline mixed in there, that breathing that in wasn't bad for you, which is a simplistic way of looking at it, but that's what it came down to. So now there are certain cancers, there's certain pulmonary diseases, and they're all taken care of under the PACT Act, and the PACT Act started as a resolution with the American Legion.
But it took a long time. Those things don't happen quickly. The PACT Act was, like I said, it starts with a resolution, starts with 2 guys talking about being a hunter. You got to push it up your department commander, and then it has to go all the way up. This has to keep going and keep going until you get it all the way up to national, and national decides to support this resolution, and then it gets pushed through to DC.
I was thinking about it yesterday, matter of fact, and the Gulf War is as far behind us now as Vietnam was when I got here.
Wow.
Yeah.
Old fart.
You said it. Yes, ma'am.
Well, yeah, well, if there's anything else, anything that you'd like to say as far as, we wouldn't pit you against, post 1 or 2 or Anchorage or anything, but is there anything that really sets Ketchikan apart as the American Legion as opposed to other places in the state or the nation?
We're active.
Very active. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we're always having stuff going on. We're always looking for more ways to get more people involved. And it was interesting. I'll tell you this real quick. Last year we did a program. We do a maker's market in the wintertime. So one Saturday a month, we allow local vendors to come in and sell their wares. And it'd be jelly, and we've got a knife maker, and quilts, and all these kinds of good stuff. And a lady came in, and she was in there doing some shopping. I walked up to her and said, "Welcome to American Legion." She goes, "I've been here 30 years. I didn't know you guys were here." And that bothered me. It really did. I was like, "Man, you've been living here 30 years. You know this building's here? We're the only building that's with a big, huge American flag painted on the front of it." Right? I mean, how did you not know we were here? You never taken the trash off? Right? But it bothered me. But we have so many people here in Ketchikan that don't know what we're about, don't know, we're the only veteran service organization in the United States that doesn't have the word veteran in our title. We're the American Legion. We're not, we're not the VFW, we're not Veterans Forum. So some people don't know what that's about. So this gives us a great opportunity. Thank you for allowing us to do this. This is good for us. Gives them, and like I said, if you have any questions, comments, come by the American Legion, call us, message us on Facebook. I get a lot of messages on Facebook.
Yeah.
Message us on Facebook. I promise I'll answer you. Maybe.
Might not be fast.
But I will answer you. So.
Well, thank you so
No,
much
thank you
for,
so much.
I think we all learned a little bit more about what it is that you all get up to here in Ketchikan and nationally, so thank you very much for your information today.
Yep.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for asking us.